Let's get some fans' reaction now, shall we? Delighted to say we can speak to Neil Atkinson from the Anfield Wrap, and he's got a big smile on his face already. Big news for Liverpool.
Yeah, I'm absolutely delighted. It's just, first and foremost, it's just a pleasure to watch him at Anfield. Anfield is, a small number of miles from my house, and I think he's the best centre-back to have ever played the game. He's certainly the best centre-back I've seen play for Liverpool by some distance. He's the best centre-back I've seen play in the Premier League. So the question is whether or not he's better than someone like Baresi, as far as I'm concerned. That's the level of player that he is. And I'm delighted that, quite simply, I just get to watch him for another 2 years in a really basic way.
Well, listen, we're all happy to watch him for as long as possible, even those that don't support Liverpool. Did you ever think it was in doubt with Van Dijk? Was he the one that you thought most likely would sign?
Yeah, it always felt the likeliest. You just sort of worried whether or not Liverpool might, with Salah and Van Dijk, and given the likely situation with Trent, might just think, let's just have a complete fresh start, a complete clean sweep, and sort of dampen down the wage bill a little bit. That was the concern more than anything else. But I think that it seemed clear to me that it's what Virgil's wanted all the way through. And it also means that he's got 2 more years of trying to win the biggest prizes in the game, playing for Liverpool. He looks almost certain as you can be, really, that he's going to pick up a Premier League this season. I think you need to change your graphic there with Liverpool honours from 1 to 1.5. To represent his one hand on that title. But I think that there's more he can do and more he can win. I think that a few of these lads haven't won enough. They've had some really poor fortune and may regret a couple of injury issues, or maybe a time the squad was perhaps left a little bit light in Virgil's position to retain the title. And that's the next challenge now. It's retaining this title. They've won it, and they've won it well. They've won it by a distance. But we all start back at zero next season. And the job is now, I think, for Salah and Van Dijk to show genuine greatness, which is to go back-to-back.
I think it's more than 1.5 now. We'll give you 1.8, I reckon, at least. Maybe even a 1.9 at the moment. If you're to look at, all the 3 players together, Salah, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Virgil van Dijk, I know it's hard, but would you say that Virgil re-signing was the most important of those 3?
I think it gives you the basis to, if you had to try and do something else, and where you have to try and do something else. I think the other thing with both Salah and Van Dijk signing is it gives Richard Hughes almost a couple of seasons to work out what his Salah and Van Dijk's succession plan is. Now, it might be that we're having this conversation again in 2 years and we're all overjoyed because they've remained in phenomenal shape and we want more of them. But I think you need to now. It's a funny thing being a sporting director of a club like Liverpool, especially when we're about to win the league title. You're planning for 2025, 2026 on the one hand, but I think you've got to have one eye on 2027, 2028 on the other, and you've got to make your decisions accordingly. So I think it's important now to begin to plan for what we think the future is for 2 years' time, when it might be reasonable to think that Van Dijk is beginning to show some wear and tear, and for when Salah is beginning to show wear and tear. That's the job. But in the meantime, the job is also to compete for the biggest honours. And with Salah and Van Dijk, with Van Dijk as the rock to build and organise a defence on, Liverpool are capable of anything. I genuinely believe that. I think these next 2 seasons are 2 seasons where Liverpool can win the biggest prizes. And I think they must think that as well, both players and the club, because why would you give Salah and Van Dijk all this money if you didn't think it was going to help you win? So I think that ultimately this is what it's about. It's about winning. That's what Arne Slot's been about since the minute he's come in. Those gauntlets have been thrown down for the players. You've got to go and show that you're good enough. They've done it so far in the league, and next season let's get back on in the league and see if we can be in the last 4 of the Champions League as well.
What about Trent Alexander-Arnold then? The general thought is that he's on his way, that he's going to go to Real Madrid. But do you think this changes anything now that Van Dijk signed, Salah is signed?
I hope so, but I don't know if it will have done. I think that, Trent is likely to have known the direction of travel around these 2 players for longer than us, if we're honest about it. So what he appears to be doing doesn't seem to be changing. There's odd sort of noises and gestures around matches. I don't think there's a ton of clarity, but I think, you learn to read the runes with these things, and it does look as though Trent has decided he wants to go to Real Madrid. He wants to leave Liverpool. I would implore, on the off chance he can hear me, Trent Alexander-Arnold to maybe have a good long think about whether or not he wants to win another couple of big trophies as a Liverpool player. He's played his part this season. He very much played his part last season, and he's earned the trophies that he's earned for us. It's been a golden period supporting Liverpool, and all of those players who contributed to that European Cup and that first league title win since 1990, they'll always have legendary status, and Trent is most definitely one of them. But there's an opportunity, I'd argue here, to see those numbers on that honours board move, and that's what we're in it for. This Liverpool at the end of this season will be, in a way that cannot be disputed, the most successful club in English football history, in a way that cannot be disputed any longer. They are anyway now, but it puts the question beyond all doubt. And then it's a matter of kicking on from there. To play for Liverpool is to play for the biggest, the best football club in this country, and I'd argue the biggest and the best club on the planet.
It seems like Liverpool have kind of got away with it a little bit, doesn't it, this season? Because they've let these three big players' contracts run down, and at least 2 out of the 3 have re-signed, so it's all fine. But the lessons need to be learned for next summer, because you've got the likes of Konate, Kelleher and Robertson, whose deals are all up.
I think for Konate it's a difficult situation, wherein I think if I was Konate I would not have signed a contract until Virgil did, because it gives you the benchmark in terms of, well, how everyone knows what everyone earns. Everyone knows that in every workplace. I'm sure you know it in yours. And I think it becomes this idea of, well, whatever he's on, I'll have 80 or 90% of that. I don't think I'm Virgil van Dijk, but I think he would have, his agent's not doing his job, I'd argue, if he doesn't get that sorted out and go that way. And I think within all of this, I think that there can be criticism of Liverpool. I think it's worth remembering in 22, in the summer of 23, when it was 2 years out, Liverpool don't qualify for the Champions League, and I doubt either Salah or Van Dijk, or for that matter Trent Alexander-Arnold's representatives, would have said re-sign with them, because it was seen as touch and go whether or not they would again. They have an excellent summer with the midfielders, but then pretty quickly it's clear Jurgen's not going to be manager, and at that point, would you re-sign before you know the next manager? So sometimes there's a little bit of circumstance, but I think on the whole, yes, it's better to get ahead of these things. I sort of disagree with Tom before. I'm of the view with Robertson, I think you get a player to compete with him for at least 12 months, and then I think the idea of Robertson's experience backing that player up from that point forward would be really, really useful, I think, at the club, and you don't let that go lightly. That's not to say he should be a starter nailed on for the next 2 years. That's not the argument, but I think you need that sort of smart head. And as I say with Konate, you know where you are. With Kelleher, if I was Keith Kelleher, I would not be signing a contract with Liverpool, because I should want to go and play first team football somewhere. So there should be no contract Liverpool can put in front of me, really, especially given the fact that Mamardashvili is joining and it looks like Alisson is staying, to say that I'll sign back up at this point. So I expect him to move on in the summer. I think we just need to be aware we're in an era. Bayern Munich had 3 or 4 contracts going really, really deep. I think we're in an era where players just have that bit more agency and that desire to plan their careers, and clubs also have got to be aware these are monumental undertakings. The scope of Salah and Van Dijk's deals will be huge. They will be Liverpool's highest paid players for the next 2 years, so you don't make that decision lightly if you're Liverpool. That's a difficult one, and you've got a lot to weigh up and a lot to put in the balance. But they've done what they've done. I agree with it, because I like the devil that but also because I think that the two players have got so much to offer. But I think it's important at times to remember that it's not straightforward running Liverpool, where everything you earn you spend, and the money has got to be on the pitch at all times. You don't get any luxuries if you're looking after Liverpool's squad.
It's been a great season, hasn't it, for Liverpool in the Premier League? But it's been a little bit of a wobble of late. Do you expect now with this news to really lift Liverpool and you charge to the title?
No, let's have a chat about the wobble. They've won 5 of the last 6 league games. If that's wobbling your way over the finish line of the league title, I'm not sure. Listen, I wasn't happy with the performance second half against West Ham. There's been periods in games where I'd have liked Liverpool to have played differently or better. I think they really came up against it against Paris Saint-Germain, and I think the first thing I do with the League Cup final is credit Newcastle. I thought that on the day they were exceptional, and it at times becomes a bit cheerless. They've got some excellent players, Newcastle, and I think Liverpool, did feel the effects of the 120 minutes they'd had against Paris Saint-Germain, emotionally, mentally and physically. But they've won 5 of the last 6. You look at the form table, if you want to get it up right now, Liverpool are number 1.
Well, I'm talking about the cups as well, though, not just the Premier League, right? There was a slight wobble, isn't it? You're not quite at your best.
But we've been going since 1892 with the most successful side in English football history. We've won 19 league titles. We're about to make it 20. We've won 6 European Cups. So that's 25. Now, some years we've done doubles, don't get me wrong, not that many. And obviously the European Cup was only going from about 1955. But the truth of the matter is that winning the Big Two has only happened 25 times in Liverpool's history since 1892. Any attempt to talk this season down in any way, shape or form, or act as though as we sit here now on the 17th of April, I'm remarkably disappointed, is ludicrous. And I'm absolutely certain that if we go back to the footage of Sky Sports News, go back to the BBC, go back to what everyone was saying in the summer, they were saying, oh, Liverpool, they'll be doing well to get third, and they might have a bit of a challenge for fourth or fifth if they're not careful with Jurgen going. Look at us now, top of the league, 2 games away max from winning the league title if we win them both. I am not having the idea that this is in any way, shape or form on the 17th of April disappointing. I am absolutely delighted. I am over the moon. I am every football cliche that you want about how good this Liverpool season has been. Liverpool have been the best team. They've been the best team since the first week, and Liverpool are going to win the league title that they richly deserve, and Virgil van Dijk is going to lift it, and he's going to look brilliant doing it.
Absolutely. I agree with all of that. It's been a very, very good season, and Liverpool are going to be champions, and they're going to win comfortably. So then, looking ahead to next season, what would you like Slot to do in the summer? What kind of areas do you think Liverpool could be improved?
I think they need to work out. I don't even know what the answer is as to what Arne Slot wants to do with the number 9 position. He's tried 3 very different players there over the course of the season, and all of it's worked occasionally, but none of it's worked consistently. And I think Salah makes that difficult. I think whoever plays as Liverpool's most attacking midfielder, which has mostly been Dominic Szoboszlai, or whoever plays as Liverpool's central forward, which has been shared between 3, has to do a lot of graft work. The attack is built around Mo Salah, and that's not changing because you don't give them the money if you're going to change that. So I think Liverpool, I'd like to see new players. It's certainly in one of those roles in the central striker. I think that feels likely. But what that looks like, I don't know. I think Arne Slot will be looking to invest in pace and looking to invest in technique. And I think that'll define all the purchases. If Trent's going, I think you obviously want to get a right back in who can compete with Bradley, especially for a season or so while Bradley still gets himself used to his body. I think he's an exceptional talent and so exciting. I'd begin the process of succession planning Virgil. If Liverpool can get a quality young centre-back in who can share the load with Konate and Virgil to an extent over the course of next season, that'd be great. And I said before, an excellent left-back to compete with Andy Robertson. And then I think you're looking for a midfielder, a top-quality one, but almost one who could play in any of the 3 areas in the way in which Liverpool set up. So either competition for Szoboszlai, competition for McAllister and Jones, or competition for Gravenberch. You know, I expect Liverpool to get the best player they can in that position and then trust Arne Slot to coach what he wants out of the middle of the park over the course of the season. I'm excited. I'm so excited about next season. I think Arsenal are going to be excellent. You can only be impressed with them in the 2 games against Real Madrid. And I think it's important not to overstate the idea that in some way, shape or form they've thrown something away this season. I don't think they have. I think they've had some hard lines. I think they had a really difficult fixture list at the start of the season, and I've got tons of sympathy around that. I don't think they've attacked anywhere near as well as Liverpool. Liverpool, there's only been, I think, 4 games this season that Liverpool haven't scored 2 or more goals in, and that's what Liverpool have built it on. I think in general, Arsenal's attacking patterns of play haven't been as good as Liverpool's, and then they've had the injuries. I don't think it's one thing, I think it's both. But all of that said, Mikel Arteta's clearly a very clever man, and I expect him to fix that with both personnel and with coaching over the course of the summer. And then you've got the idea, if you don't quite know what Manchester City are going to do, I sort of struggle to see beyond those 3 for the title next season. I think that everyone can be there, and it might come down to a bit of luck in a big game. It might come down to the fixture list. It might come down to the injury question. But it's exciting, isn't it? You know, it's exciting, and it's exciting to support this Liverpool team. And there's no reason to think they can't go back to back. You've just got to be what Arne Slot's been all season, which is clear-eyed about the size of the challenge that this Premier League is. Liverpool have done a brilliant job of that, and I think they'll continue to do so next season.
Neil, thank you very much for coming on. Very passionate as ever. That's what we expect. And listen, enjoy the day, mate. You've got your man, and you're going to win the Premier League. Enjoy the rest of the season, eh?
Sunshine.